My wife secretly siphoned $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair, then manipulated me to sign away our property in a shady divorce. Now she's claiming the house worth $600. $0 was always hers, and I just found out she's been cheating on me with her best friend for years. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Sarah, turned out to be a complete nightmare. Honestly, I thought we had a good thing going, married for 10 years, 2 kids, a nice house, stable jobs. But then out of nowhere, I found out she was cheating on me with her best friend, Lisa. And not just a little flirtation here and there. No, it was full-blown, years-long affair. The wild part. She siphoned over $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her little side life, and I only stumbled on it because I was doing some late-night digging into our finances after noticing some weird charges. I never expected something like this to blow up in my face, especially not so suddenly. It started about 6 months ago. At first, I noticed she was acting a little different, more distant, always on her phone, hiding her texts. She'd brush it off when I asked, say she was stressed at work or just tired. But then I caught her lying about where she was going one evening. She told me she was working late, but I peeked at her phone and saw messages that didn't add up. That's when I started digging deeper. I ran some searches on our bank account and noticed huge withdrawals: 10, 0 here, $15, $0 there, over and over again. I was confused, thinking maybe she was investing or paying off debts I didn't know about. But then I saw the transactions that made my stomach drop. Siphoned money, transferred into accounts I'd never heard of, and even cash withdrawals in places I'd never been. I confronted her that night. I was angry, hurt, betrayed, everything at once. I threw the bank statements on the table and demanded an explanation. She looked surprised at first, then furious. Her face twisted into this icy glare, and she started to lie, saying she was just making some smart investments, that I shouldn't be paranoid. She said she'd never cheat, that I was just overreacting. But I could tell she was lying. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she fidgeted, something was definitely off. I pressed her harder and finally she snapped. Said she was under a lot of stress, that I was suffocating her, that I was paranoid. But I knew better. I knew she was hiding something. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the gut. I started to realize that her excuses didn't add up. The money, the secretive behavior, the late nights. She was hiding a lot more than I thought. And then I remembered the way she used to be so bitchy and dismissive whenever I'd bring up her friends or her social life. I'd always thought she was just being a pain, but now I wondered if Lisa was involved all along. It was just too coincidental. I decided I had to find out the truth once and for all, even if it meant risking everything. That's when I started digging into her phone, her emails, her social media. I knew I was risking my marriage, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I needed answers, real answers, and I was ready to face whatever I found. The more I looked into her phone, the more I realized just how deep this whole mess went. I found texts, emails, even secret chats with Lisa, stuff that made me want to throw up. They'd been sneaking around for years, meeting up in hotels, exchanging explicit messages, sharing private moments. I couldn't believe I missed all the signs. Sarah had always been the kind of woman who acted like she was the victim, the one who deserved everything. She'd lie effortlessly, spin stories about her friendship with Lisa, claiming it was innocent, just girls being girls. But the truth was right there on her phone, proof of everything she'd been hiding. One night I decided to confront her again. I waited until she was in the shower, then snuck into her phone and started scrolling through her messages. I saw everything, proof of her affair, her manipulation, her lies. I felt like I was watching some twisted movie, only it was real life. I felt rage building inside me. How could she betray me like this? After 10 years, 2 kids, our home, she threw it all away for some stupid affair. And she had the nerve to lie to my face, pretend everything was fine. I felt my blood boiling. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't want to blow everything up without a plan. I needed to be smart about this. The next day I decided to get legal advice. I found a lawyer who specialized in divorce and asset division. Turns out she had siphoned off $250,000 from our joint account, money I thought was safe, money we'd worked hard for. She transferred it into her own accounts, spent it on Lisa, on hotels, on vacations. She even bought herself a new car with some of it. It was all so calculated. I felt like such an idiot for not noticing sooner. I also learned that she'd manipulated me into signing away our property. She made it seem like I had no choice, that I was the one pushing for divorce when she was secretly planning to take everything. She had her lies ready, her stories crafted to make me look like the bad guy. But I knew better now. I saw through her. I started to piece together the entire picture. She had been planning this for months, maybe even years. She played the innocent wife, the loving mother, all while secretly funding her affair and stealing our savings. I was devastated, angry, humiliated. How could I have been so blind? But beneath all that anger, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. Not with my money, not with my heart, not with my family. I was angry at myself for not noticing sooner, but I knew I had to act fast before she drained us completely or took the house and everything else. I decided that I'd fight for my rights, for what was legally mine, and I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she'd done to me. I was furious, but I also felt a strange determination. This was war, and I was ready to fight. After I gathered all the evidence, screenshots of her explicit chats, bank statements showing the siphoned money, and her shady emails, I knew I had enough to make her squirm. The next step was confronting her with everything. I didn't want to do it lightly. I knew she'd lie, manipulate, try to twist things around. But I also knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed to see her reaction face to face to break through her lies with the truth. So one evening I called her into the living room. She was wearing that typical bitchy smirk, acting innocent, trying to act like I was overreacting again. I laid the papers out on the coffee table, bank statements, chat logs, emails. Her face instantly lost its color. She tried to deny everything, of course, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that I was paranoid. She threw in the usual, "You don't trust me. You're crazy. It's just sex," as if that somehow excused her betrayal. But I pushed back. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, about how she manipulated me into signing away our assets. Her eyes widened for a second, then she recovered her composure. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just jealous because I found someone better. Lisa's just a friend, nothing more. You're overthinking everything." That's when I lost it. I told her I wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. I told her I was done being her punching bag, that I was filing for divorce and taking back what was mine. Her bitchy attitude turned into full-blown rage. She started yelling, calling me all sorts of names, pathetic, insecure, jealous. But I didn't care. I was finally seeing her for what she was, a liar, a manipulator, a user. That night, I felt a mixture of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally knew the truth, and disgust because I had trusted her for so long. I kept replaying everything: the lies, the sneaking around, the money she stole, the way she used me like a pawn. I realized I'd been a fool, but I also knew I had to cut her out of my life completely. I couldn't keep living with this betrayal hanging over my head. The betrayal was like a knife twisting every time I looked at her. I knew I had to take control, to stand up for myself and my kids. The emotional toll was overwhelming, but I also felt this strange sense of clarity. She was done, and I needed to be done too. I decided to get a lawyer, start the divorce process, and fight for my rights, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity. I wasn't going to let her win, not after everything she's done. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I handed over all the evidence. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Karen, told me to prepare for a long fight, but also reassured me that I had the upper hand. The first thing she emphasized was that I needed to secure the house, especially since she was claiming it was always hers, even though it was bought and paid for during our marriage. I knew she'd try to manipulate the property division, especially after I found out she'd lied about signing some papers during the divorce proceedings. She staged everything, I was sure of it. She was good at lying, but I was even better at catching her in her lies now. We filed for divorce, and I made it clear I wanted full custody of the kids. I also demanded the return of the stolen money, more than $250, $0, which she had transferred to her accounts. I wanted her to pay for everything she'd taken from us. I also wanted her held accountable for the affair, though I knew that wouldn't necessarily impact the divorce settlement. Still, I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, to see that her manipulative games couldn't save her from losing everything she'd been trying to steal. The first court date was a nightmare. She showed up with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to act innocent, claiming I was the one cheating, that I was paranoid and jealous. She looked right into my eyes and lied about everything, even denying the affair outright. I could see her trying to spin the story, her version, like she was the victim. But I had the proof, and I made sure the judge saw it. My lawyer presented everything, and I was surprised at how calm I managed to stay, even though inside I wanted to scream at her. The judge didn't buy her lies. She ordered her to turn over all the money she siphoned, and she acknowledged that the house was bought during our marriage, meaning I was entitled to my share. But Sarah's bitchy smirk didn't fade. She started to spin a new story, claiming she was entitled to the house because she'd always been the one taking care of it, even though I knew that was a complete lie. She argued that she deserved it because she worked so hard, even though she'd clearly been funneling money into her affair and lying about her whereabouts for years. That's when I realized she wasn't going to give up easily. She was going to fight every step of the way, trying to manipulate her way out of losing everything. Meanwhile, I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. Anger because I couldn't believe I'd been played for a fool for so long, and relief because I finally had the upper hand. I knew she'd do everything she could to keep the house, to keep the money, to keep the life she'd been secretly building behind my back. But I was determined not to let her manipulate her way out of this. I'd fought for my marriage, but she threw that all away with her lies and her betrayal. Now I was fighting for what's rightfully mine: my house, my money, my dignity. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to come up with some new scheme. But I was ready for whatever she threw my way, because I finally saw her for what she really was: a selfish, manipulative bitch who thought she could get away with everything. Not anymore. The months that followed were she kept trying to spin stories, to manipulate the situation in her favor, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. My lawyer kept pushing back, ensuring that the judge saw through her lies and made clear rulings. I was awarded the house, and the court confirmed that the $250, $0 she siphoned from our joint account was to be returned to me, along with other assets she tried to hide or claim as her own. Still, she kept insisting that she was entitled to everything because she'd worked so hard on the house and on their affair with Lisa. That just made me laugh hard. She thought she could spin her way out of everything, but I had the receipts, the proof, the truth. The final blow came when I discovered she had been cheating on me with Lisa for years. I found out through a series of emails and texts that Lisa wasn't just her best friend. They'd been having sex, sneaking around in hotel rooms, sharing intimate moments. I had always suspected Lisa was more than just a friend, but seeing it confirmed was like getting hit by a freight train. I felt sick. All those years of pretending everything was perfect, all those nights I thought she was working late or out with friends, she was with Lisa, betraying me right under my nose. It was a punch to the gut, and honestly, I didn't know whether to be angrier at her or Lisa. Once I had all the evidence, I confronted Sarah again. I told her I knew everything, about the affair, about the money, about her lies. Her bitchy smirk had turned into an angry scowl. She yelled, called me jealous, paranoid, accused me of not trusting her, but I wasn't listening anymore. I told her she had burned every bridge, that I was done with her manipulations, and that she was going to lose everything: our house, her freedom, her reputation. I made it clear I wasn't going to be a patsy anymore, that I was done being her punching bag. The divorce settled, I moved out of the house and I started rebuilding my life. I got full custody of the kids, who have been the only bright spot in this mess. They're young, they do fully understand everything, but I want to protect them from her toxicity. I've cut all ties with Lisa, and I've been working on healing myself emotionally. It's been hard, really hard, but I've learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and the importance of paying attention to the signs. I realize now I should have been more vigilant, more skeptical. I trusted her too much, and I got. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know I can't change the past. What I do know is that I've come out of this stronger, more cautious, and with a better sense of what I deserve. I want to tell anyone out there who's going through something similar: trust your instincts, keep a close eye on your finances, and don't ignore the red flags. Because when someone is willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what they want, you need to be prepared. I've lost a lot: money, trust, years of my life, but I've gained clarity. And honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully trust again, but I will definitely be more cautious. It's been a brutal lesson, but I guess that's life. Sometimes you just have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move on. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly has your back is yourself. Now that everything is settled, I spend a lot of time reflecting on how I got here. It's not easy to admit I was so blind for so long, but I guess that's part of the lesson. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's almost impossible to get back. But what's worse is realizing how much I let her manipulate me, making me doubt myself, my judgment, even my own instincts. I thought I knew her, but I was dead wrong. She was a master manipulator, a liar, a user. And the worst part, she still tries to act like the victim, like I'm the one who screwed everything up. I've learned to be more guarded, more cautious. I check bank accounts, I pay attention to her behavior, and I don't trust blindly anymore. I've become more aware of how people can hide their true nature behind a mask of normalcy. My trust was shattered, but I'm slowly rebuilding my sense of self. The kids are my anchor. They keep me grounded, remind me of what's truly important. I want them to grow up knowing what honesty and loyalty mean, not what betrayal and manipulation look like. Looking back, I realize I was to think I had a perfect marriage. Maybe I was too trusting, too quick to dismiss the signs of trouble. But I also understand that sometimes people reveal their true colors only when it's too late, and that's a harsh lesson to learn. I hope no one else has to go through what I did, but if you do, my advice is simple. Pay attention to the details, listen to your gut, and don't let anyone manipulate you into giving up your rights or your dignity. Money, trust, and love, they're all fragile things that can be broken in an instant if you're not careful. I won't lie, it's been a brutal ride. I've lost a lot: money, trust, my peace of mind. But I've also gained clarity. I see the world differently now, more cautious but also more aware. I've come to accept that some people are just wired differently, selfish, manipulative, and willing to lie to get what they want. But I also know that I'm stronger than I thought. I survived this, and I'm starting to rebuild my life from the ground up. In the end, I guess the biggest lesson I've learned is this: never ignore the red flags, never let someone take control of your life without questioning everything. Because if you don't, you might end up losing more than just money. You might lose yourself. And I refuse to let that happen again. I'll keep moving forward, better prepared for whatever life throws at me. Because at the end of the day, the only person I can truly rely on is myself.